It's Monday, the 20th of April, 2020, and I'm here speaking with the 70s pop star producer, Mr. John Springate.
Where? Oh,
hello. How are you coping with lockdown?
Oh, not too bad. It's very interesting. Could totally sort of different change of life. Luckily, we live by the beach in Port Talbot, so I'm able to have a nice walk in the morning. The promenade is around about 1.5 miles long, so I'm taking 3 miles a day. So that's really good. And apart from that, it's very very quiet around here. Very quiet.
Well, let's go back to the start. How did you get into music?
Set back in time. Right. Well, the day war broke out.
You were just getting off the ark.
Let me think. One of the earliest memories, I think, was my dad had a banjo, and it was a little tiny thing. It wasn't a long scale one, but it was a little tiny thing that where he picked it up from, I'm not sure. I think he brought it back from America when he was in, because when he was in my dad was in the war. He was on a battleship, and it got blown up at the back end of it, and so they towed them into to Boston in the States, and he spent 6 months of the war there. So he had quite an easy war, really, in some respects. But I'm sure he brought this banjo back, and I remember, him teaching myself and my brother the basic chords, and we would sing very sort of simplistic songs, and I think that was the first recollection of playing an instrument. Going on from there, I think it was a bit of a blank period until I was about 16 or 17. And my brother, by then, he had a group, and he was playing. He had a Watkins Rapier guitar, a bit of a collector's item now. And he had a group which did basically shadows music, and they were just pre-Beatles, just slightly pre-Beatles. So you're looking at 63, 64, something around there. And they used to rehearse in the front room. They had no gigs, but they used to, and the neighbours were fine. There was no problem at all. So every Wednesday night they would rehearse in the front room, but I was just attracted to the bass player. The way he played and the sound of the bass. And I think from then on, I was always gonna be a bass player, really. And then eventually, through that little period up until about 17, 18, 19, my brother and we formed a 3-piece group, and we were doing Hendrix, Who, Jimmy, Cream, all those bands. We were really busy. We were doing 5 gigs a week, and we were getting £12 a night. And in those days that was good. That was good, and so we had a really good repertoire that we could be doing at college, doing all the progressive music stuff on a Friday night, quite easily. And on a Saturday we could be doing a wedding and doing Engelbert Humperdinck, I Had the Last Waltz with You. We had everything covered.
That's a good apprenticeship as well, that, isn't it? Because you're able to play and pleasing audiences, where it's all about learning to please an audience, isn't it? And reading an audience.
Yeah, I don't think that was probably in our head at the time, although we were going with the flow. What was in the charts, we were doing what's in the charts, and stuff like that. I know how to read an audience now, quite easily. I look at them and go, right, what we got here, what generations we got, and I'll know exactly what. But in those days, I think you were just following the flow of what just about everybody was probably doing, and it worked. It worked really well. We got this gig backing Clem Curtis and the Foundations. He was the lead singer of the Foundation. By then they had all their hits, and they were just doing the circuit, doing all the clubs and all that. So all I was doing on stage was Clem go, baby, and I would go la na 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 na. I thought this isn't a job. So I decided. I thought I said to my brother, I'm leaving. This is like I'm not, you know, I'm going nowhere, you know. So I had no job to go. I had nothing to go to at all. Nothing to go to. And then, you know, it was a case of just looking at the Melody Maker and finding out what was there. And then this ad came up, said, chart act seeks bass player vocals. So I thought, well, time to get the bass back out again, I suppose, you know. And I rang up, and the guy I spoke to was he was the tour manager, and you know, it turned out that I knew him on the circuit that we've been doing previously with John Johnson the Bandwagon. He worked with an outfit called Alan Bell, and so I said, "Oh right, okay, yeah." He said, "Well, come to the, you know, come to the audition." So the audition was in Sheffield, so I had to go out to Sheffield. And he said, "But you know, before you do," he said, "This is Gary, of course." He said, "He's on telly tomorrow night. Have a look. He's on Top of the Pops." I said, "Oh right, okay." So looked at him. I thought, it's Benny Hill in drag, isn't it? You know. And I said to my mum, I said, because in those days, you know, the stock look for any musician was granny t-shirt, flared jeans and long hair, you know. And I said to my mother, I said, "Well, what about my image?" She said, "What image? You haven't got an image." So all right, okay. So I went up to Sheffield, and there were about 17 bass players there, but none of them wanted to do the audition because the whole of the band wasn't there. Some of the members were coming up from London, and all that was there was the drummer, and everybody was umming and ahhing and all that. And this guy Steve, you know, who I'd known, he said, "Come on, just do a bit and see how you get on." And I did, and I got the job. Partly because I think, you know, with Jerry, our guitarist, I was the same size. I was the same height. Jerry was 5'4", and I was 5'4".
Oh, so Jerry was already in the band.
Jerry was already. I mean, it was a unit before I joined. But I found out later that the reason why the bass player that was there got the sack was he was just big. He was just too big. But also, Gary didn't like the fact that he was chatting up the girls at the front of the stage while he was trying to sing. So he had to go. He had to go. So I got the gig, and that was it. And here I am.
Obviously, obviously, whilst you were with them all, you had massive hits and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
So when did the Glitter Band go on their own? And whose idea was that?
Well, it was frustration because I was a singer, you know, and the funny thing, I gave the whole thing like 3 singles and an album. It was like, it felt like that, you know, that whole thing. It turned out to be 5 years, you know, and you know, as time went by, you know, we got to like 2 years in. I I was getting itchy feet, and I wanted to be something. I didn't want to be in the background, you know, back in somebody else. And I think same for Jerry as well. So so you know, it was to put to Mike that we did some recording. So he put us in the studio, let us do some, you know, rough recordings, and Angel Face came out as the first single out of that session. It wasn't complete at that time. It had to be re-scored and rewritten. But that was the first hit, and that was got to number 4, I think, for us. You know, that was our first hit.
Yeah. So how many top 10 hits did you have in with the Glitter Band?
Well, we had 7 hits altogether. 7 hits. I mean, it's really funny because we're one of those bands, I think, like a lot of bands who have, you know, success but minor success. You know, and until you actually say how many hits you've had, you wouldn't think it, because there are invisible hits like The Tears I Cried. You know, Goodbye My Love was their biggest hit, although, you know, Angel Face everybody thinks of as being the big hit. You yeah, Goodbye My Love got to number 2, whereas Angel Face got to number 4. So yeah.
So, because what kept Goodbye My Love off from being number 1? Which song was it?
Do you have to bring that up? We were something.
Every time it comes on the radio, I just start laughing because I can just imagine your face.
We were sort to get into number 1 by a group called Pilot with a song called January, and
Good song. It was a good song.
The second week that we were waiting to hear, we were in a hotel room in Germany. We were waiting to hear. We would listen to the radio in Germany, seeing if we got to number 1 or not, and we didn't. We stayed at number 2 for 2 weeks. So it would have been nice. It would have been nice. But then again, you know, it's funny how some bands have this sort of different feel to them if they haven't had a number 1. You know, the Who. I mean, I'm not putting myself in the same class as the Who, you know, but the Who never had a number 1. And you know, there are a few bands like that never had number 1s, but
yeah.
they you know, they create this thing. You know, it's really weird.
It's to do with the quality of what you produce, isn't it? And it's sometimes it's bad luck. You know, it's bad luck when you release, isn't it? And this is why it's so important to release at the same time, a certain time. You know, but it's, you know, if you got something strong in the charts, you know, was it Frankie Goes to Hollywood, The Power of Love?
Yeah.
Band came out at the same time, you know, and it's like you got no chance, you know. So it's kind of like, but it doesn't take anything away from The Power of Love just because it wasn't number 1, you know. So. So
right.
how long? Oh, tell me the story of when you realised it was the end of the Glitter Band when you went to see a certain gig. That's historical. That is.
Well, yeah. We just had a hit called People Like You and People Like Me, and it was really as far away from being glitter band or glam rock as you could possibly get when you consider the sort of great records that bands like The Sweet were making, you know. And this was real BBC Radio 1 airplay. It got played. People Like You got played. In fact, it still gets played now in Germany and Denmark and other places, and I still get a royalty off of it. It's quite amazing. But I said to Jerry, you know, at the time when we were going around publicising it, I said, it's time for another band like the Who to come along, don't you think? You know. And he said, yeah, well, maybe. So anyway, we got this call from the office saying there's this new band, the Sex Pistols, doing a gig at the Notre Dame Hall in Leicester Square. Do you fancy going and have a look? Said, yeah. So Jerry and I decided to go along. And it was a very weird night because when we walked in, the DJ didn't know what to play because there were no punk records out at that time, and he was playing Led Zeppelin. It was very weird, you know. And you got all these punks walking around with not one sign of a flare at all. I mean, it was all drain pipes and stuff like that, and really sort of like, you know, different spiky hair and stuff. And the Sex Pistols came on. It was actually the same night, I think Janet Street Porter was doing an interview with them as well for ITV. And they came on stage and they did 4 songs. And I remember distinctly looking at Jerry and saying, well, that's it then, isn't it? And it was. I mean, and I would say, within about 2 to 3 months, you couldn't sell us, Sweet, Mud, Susie Quatro, you couldn't sell us for love nor money. Gone.
Wow. So what in those 4 songs, what did you see? Was the talent there, or was it just the movement that you saw?
Raw energy.
Right. Okay.
Raw energy. If you look at the Sex Pistols doing Vacant, Pretty Vacant is the one for me. That's the one for me. I mean, that was like, yeah, you know, if you watch, it's just rawness. It's rock and roll, but just done differently.
Yeah.
Just done differently.
Like you said, maybe because you'd moved to mainstream pop, if you went.
Like you, and people like me need some, you know. And then you got, I am an antichrist. I am
Yeah,
a kissed. This what? You know. So
yeah. So
you're out.
yeah,
You're
you were
goodbye.
probably as a group, you were probably in that position where you think actually something needs to change, and then all of a sudden you go and you do that gig, and it's gonna be even more impactful, isn't it?
Well, we tried to change, and as much as like we decided to call ourselves the G band instead of the Glitter band, which made no difference whatsoever. You know, I mean, it was just like, no, this ain't going to happen. You know, and by then I was getting itchy feet, thinking, you know, I've got to start doing something. You know, because I kind of thought the end was nigh, and but one of my influences, you know, from that period was Mike Leander, who unfortunately is died now. But Mike, who produces us, I thought I want to be a producer. I really want to get into producing and that side of things. And I thought the only way to do it is to get my own recording studio together, which I did. And I had the studio for about 4.5 years. And you know, the whole thing was to try and, you know, write, get records and, you know, make it function on its own. But I wasn't getting any. I wasn't getting any sort of real, you know, hits. And so if you haven't got any hits, you know, you've got to pay the bills. So I was hiring it out to everybody, you know, to record companies and stuff like that. And one of the acts that I did have in was Depeche Mode. And Depeche Mode came in to do some of their early demos there. I think when Vince was with them, you know, very nice, charming boys, you know. I mean, didn't say
So
blues.
were they signed by the record company then, or did they come to you before going to the record company?
I'm not sure actually, because by then I was in the basement. I was in the studio. You know, not knowing what was happening in the real world at all. You know, I mean, I was lost track with music totally by then. In as much as like I was listening to the radio in some respects, but not. You know, I was getting on with. You know, I was probably one of the first musicians who became an engineer instead of the other way around. You know,
Yeah.
I was just stuck in the studio, and it got to a point where after like doing 10, you know, suffering 10 hours a day, producing, you know, not producing bands, but just engineering for them, and to keep putting up with all the crap that you could, you know, you had to keep it all going. I'd had enough. I'd had enough. And I remember well, there was a jingle company that loved the studio, and they said, if you ever sell it, if you want to get rid of it, let us know, we'll have it. And they did. And it was Crocodile Music, and they just took it over. And
When did you make the leap from there to dance music?
I don't know. No, I do know. When I came out, basically.
Okay.
When I
Was
came
that
out, suddenly it was a different world. Different world.
was it because you were going out to gay clubs and stuff like
Yeah,
that? So you were hearing that sort of music,
yeah.
and you thought, I can do
Yeah, I could do that. I could do that. Yeah, I was getting quite a few. But one of the first, one of the first I wrote was with Pete Phipps from the band, and it was called "It's Not the Men in My Life, It's the Life in My Men," recorded by Miriam Stockley, and that was the very first one. But I had no idea about doing any form of sequencing, and on the electronic side, I had no knowledge at all. And but there was a guy who used to work for Crocodile Music, Nick Magnus, who was he was on the case, and they got him. They paid for him to come in and do the programming of the whole song, and it was great. He did a really good job. So that was the very first one, and then slowly after that, I started to get into picking up speed. I mean, I got rid of the studio, and then, funnily enough, went back on the road working with Gary at the time, and we were doing all the universities. It was a great time, and yeah, and for me as well, because at the grand old age of 34, I decided to come out. I thought, this is no good. I've got to get it together. You know,
Yeah.
that's the best thing I ever did. Best thing I ever did. So yeah, so a lot of music I was picking up was in the clubs, you know, and listening to Hazel Dean sing "Searching for the Millionth Time," you know, bless her. You know, but that's what when you were out and you were going out to clubs, it was the same songs every night, but you never got bored with them, you know. Body Rock was the big one. That was the big one.
When did you meet Nicky French?
Well, how did I
When
meet Nicky? How did I meet Nicky? Yes, we were both performing down in Wales, funny enough, in Cardiff. And there was a pub called the Red Dragon, I think, I was doing,
That was my local.
which was next to the station, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Nicky at that night was performing somewhere else, and somebody from she'd come round to the Red Dragon, I think, to say hello to the owners. And they introduced us, and he said, I said, doing a recording. She said, no. I said, well, come in, we'll do something. And I'd written this song called Pride and Passion, which Nicky sang, and that was it, really. So nothing really happened until I got a call from a couple of guys up in where were they? Sorry, boss, I can't remember where you were now. Northampton? I can't remember now. But anyway, that was Energized Records, and they said, look, we've got this idea of doing a song, sort of like danced up. I said, oh, okay. And they said, it's Total Eclipse of the Heart. And I thought, oh yeah, that'll work. Yeah, that'll work. So I had a chat with Nicky, and she said, I said, I told her the title, and she said, oh, I don't know if that'll work or not. I said, well, just come over, we'll do it. Anyway, we did this version, which I initially did, and we put it out. And Nicky was selling them at the gigs. It's quite funny. It was just very, very low key, And meanwhile, there was this promoter called Pit Stop who'd been working for one of the energy labels, and he was just about to start working with Mike Stock and Matt Aiken from BWL, because they just split up with Pete, and they were starting their own label, and he was going to go work for them. And he rang me up and he said, look, I'm just getting myself a flat together in London, and said, can I come and stay with you for a few days? I said, yeah. So he came and stayed. He said, so what have you been up to? I said, well, I've just done this Total Eclipse thing with Nicky French. And I played it to him. He said, oh, I like that. He said, let me play it to the boys. So he played it to the boys, and lo and behold, they liked it, and they decided to run with it and, put it out as a single. Then I get a phone call from the office saying, oh, can you come in? Because we want to talk about Top of the Pops. I said, yeah, okay. So I went in and started about what we could do for Top of the Pops. What the heck would we chat? And then I'm not realizing, no, we have got Top of the Pops. It's on Thursday.
Oh my God.
Oh, right, okay, right. Because I thought we were just discussing the possibilities, no conference calls in those days, I tell you. So it ended up, we did Top of the Pops, and for Nicky it was a massive hit in the States, and that really got on the. Sorry?
It went to number 2 in America.
Number 2 in America, yeah, fantastic.
Number 4 in the
UK. Number 5 in the UK, but number 5 for like 3 weeks. But it was a worldwide one. It was a good, it was, and Pride and Passion became the B-side. So that for me was good, because that, a little bit of income from that. So that was good. Yeah.
America is amazing.
Oh, well, I did a surprise video with Nicky. I think, where did I go? Was it Chicago? I just did a surprise video where I went to Chicago to say hello.
Like you do.
Like you do, no, to hell with it. Why not?
So obviously then for when you and Jerry then were thinking about writing a song for Eurovision, Nicky was obviously your first port of call.
Well, no, the way that worked out was very interesting, because I was not doing a lot, and I rang up Jerry and I said, do you fancy coming over and doing some writing? We just, see what comes out. So he came over and we started to write Don't Play That Song Again. And I remember writing it with him. I mean, all the stages of writing it as well, because we knew we had something special. And by the time we got to the chorus, I said, this is Eurovision, I said, this is Eurovision. Let's not bother about middle 8. Let's do a key change and leave it. And it came in at 2 minutes 47 seconds. So we were well in the 3 minute time thing. and we just need to, I mean, in hindsight, I didn't realize I'd set this all up. You know, the whole chain of events was, the stars were in the right place. Everything was in the right place. Nikki was prime good choice because she'd already had success. She had experience of singing in front of big audiences, you know. And so I rang him up. I said, look, Nick, I've got this song. I've got this song, and it's Eurovision. I said, look, if I give you 200 quid, would you come over and do a vocal for me? I said, don't expect you to do a backing or anything. She said, oh yeah, no, I'll come over. Yeah. I said, what, do you like Eurovision? She said, I love Eurovision. I said, in that case, forget the £200. Just come over. Just come over and do it. So she did, and I distinctly remember her doing the vocal, and afterwards thinking, this is good. This is special. This is definitely special. And I played to Jeff, my partner in the evening, and he said the same. He said, this could go all the way, and it did. But hearing the other inches, I think, you know, I think we got the edge here. Being in the studio, you know, and even with, you know, it's quite an interesting thing, because at the time when we were, you know, waiting to hear the results, and there was some background things going on, and they were talking about Eurovision on the screen. So this floor manager came running up to me and Jerry and saying, if you win, can you go through very quickly because we're running out of time? He said, yeah. I said to Jerry, well, he hasn't said that to anybody else. He said, oh, they've probably got their own floor managers. I said, yeah. Not thinking it. And then next minute, this lady comes running up to Nikki, doing makeup, you know. And I always thought that if we hadn't come to, no, if we whatever came second, if we weren't second, we'd got it. And lo and behold, you know, it was 6 chicks with Only the Women Know came second, and I thought, yeah, we got it, and that was it. It was great, great. But as I say, you know, oh God, it was just, you know, that whole build up to that point where you have to wait. How these kids get on with the X Factor and stuff, I do not know.
The pressure of it all.
Got to be a brave person.
That was 20 years ago.
Yes, Sergeant Pepper told the band to play.
20 years ago.
No,
and that's where I come into your life.
Sorry.
That's where I come into your life.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, it was nice meeting you again. Bye.
I met you in London 2 weeks before you were due to go to Sweden for Eurovision.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it was at the Two Brewers in Clapham, and there'd been a big charity due, and you'd done it in the afternoon, and I was doing the evening. Yeah, that's where we met. So, and that was about 2 weeks before you went, because you invited me. You were having a bit of a couple of days before you went to Sweden. You're having a bit of a do at your house with Nikki and stuff, and that's where you invited me over. So it's about 2 weeks before you went, I think. So,
right, okay. Yeah, because we would sort of edging our bets and maybe getting another, you know, song in to, and we were doing two, but we would figure on the two boys and two girls who did the backing vocals for Nikki being involved, and one of them couldn't be, and I sort of, and then I saw you. I thought, oh, you'd be great for it, and so we did Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet.
Which we thought was great, and it did actually get into the final 20 the next year, you know. But unfortunately, that's as far as it got, which was a bit of a shame.
It was a good catchy tune.
It was good. Yeah, I still like it. I still think it's good.
It's just stuck in your head, even now, you know. And even now, I get, because I think in 2001, then I moved to Spain. And I was performing that song in Spain, and I was performing that song until I moved back here in 2013, and I still get asked for it. Yeah. It's a catchy, memorable song.
It's good. Yeah.
So, but you moved to Spain. Tell us about your trip quickly, about how you got to go to Spain.
Well, it's all your fault. Well, you'd gone, and I was getting to a point where, you know, I did enough of dance music. You know, I was getting a little bit. I'd had enough. I mean, we'd done Eurovision, and although we didn't win Eurovision, we were still winners in as much as we got through to the final. So I had no problem about that at all. You know, and for Nikki, that's set her up for every year now that she's gotten involved with Eurovision, which is fantastic. It's really good. So I was. It was funny. It was a funny time because a lot of people were going to Spain. I think there was something in the air. You know, people were sort of. I said to someone, I'm going to Spain, and they said, "You're about the third person that said that to me today." They said, you know. So what made up my mind was I'd emailed you and I said, "Are you making money?" Or no, I said, "Are you earning a living, or are you making money?" And you said, "I'm making money." I said, "We're coming over."
And at that time, it was kind of the Costa del Sol had gone to its peak, hadn't it? It kind of you know, every other bar was doing cabaret.
Yeah.
There was so much work, and everything
Absolutely.
was cheap because we hadn't quite gone to the euro at that point. So everything was still really cheap.
Well,
we a good wage.
Well, we arrived in January. We arrived. I think we arrived, and it had gone. It had gone to euro then. We arrived at the right time, really. You know, I mean, we were both working 6-7 nights a week.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I was talking to Adele Lee Peters earlier on. You know, because she was out there. We both know. And I said to her, I said, "I don't know how we did it, you know. I mean, 6-7 nights a week." I said, "Singing the same songs every night. I don't know how we did it, you know."
I'm still doing it.
Still doing it. Still doing it. Well, same here, you know. I'm still doing it, but yeah. But it was a great time living the life. I mean, we were out there for 8 years. I loved every minute. I did not want to come back at all.
I think really, I think if the crisis, the big recession in 2008, I think if that hadn't happened, we'd all probably still be there.
Yes, quite possibly. Yeah.
It all changed dramatically then. When that happened, it changed all over the world. But in Spain, you know, they've only just come out of that. And now we've got this period now of coronavirus, and, you know, God knows what's going to happen to them, bless them. But it all changed then, didn't it? It all kind of went a bit sour then, and people started leaving. And
very much so. I mean, the gigs sort of started to drop off, and
yeah.
It was just a really, really bad time. So it was time to come back. But so
now you're back in the UK.
Yeah.
And are you settled?
No. It's been 10 years now. It's been about 10 years now, and yes, of course, you know, you got to let go. You know, you've got to let go, and it took me a long time to let go. I loved it out there. I loved the house that we had and everything about it. But you know, unfortunately, you know, it was the recession that did it. But you know, I think we're better off now than we've been for a long time. You know, so yeah, in some respects, I'm sort of resigned, if you like, not settled, but resigned to it.
I'm similar. I think if you know, because we had our own little family there, so I think if we all kind of agreed and to go back, and the work was there for us, I'd be like, okay, I'm booking the ticket now, you know. So because it was that, but it would never be the same if I went back now. Then, you know, so you just accept it, don't you? You accept it and make the most of it. So you're still when all this is over, you'll still be gigging.
Oh yes, well, as I say, I mean, you know, depending on how many's left, you know, and I don't mean that in a nasty way. You know, it's a terrible time for the elderly like me.
You look about 20.
I see. I don't think of myself as 71 at all. It's just ridiculous. How did I get this far? You know, but you know, we're just gonna have to wait and see how it pans out, I suppose. You know.
But for the last question,
the
first thing, once proper lockdown is lifted, what's the first thing you really want to do?
Divorce. No, not really. I love him lots. I love him lots. He's doing extremely well. He's on the front line because he's in the funeral business. So yeah, anybody in the front line is not really, you know, at the front end of it. No, I don't really. You know, I think we'll go out for a nice meal somewhere. Myself, Jeff, and Mark, best friend.
Yeah,
I think we'll probably go somewhere nice to eat a nice Sunday lunch, maybe.
McDonald's will be open by then.
Oh, long before then, yeah. Jeff will be down there, definitely. There'll be McFlurries all round.
Listen, I should speak to you soon. Thanks for joining me and everybody else.
That's quite right.
Interview.
You can send the check to the new address. Yeah.
The new address. Yeah. I'll be sending it from my old address. Listen, you keep safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Jason. All the best. Bye-bye.